So I quite like this diffused look in the centre, but I am going to put some stippling in the centre. I want it to look like the centre is sort of here. I quite like this line, and I'm going to see what it looks like when I've put a little bit of a dark centre in. So into my lovely autumn gold, and I'll put it on here, autumn gold, with just a little bit of midnight green to darken it, just a little. Not too much. You don't want it to go too green. Perfect. So just make sure there's no paint on the back of this. And then I'm thinking of the section I want to protect, which is that. I'm just going to put a few little stipply bits in. Okay, I like that. That's nice. And at the same time, take some of the paint out of the brush. I'm just going to apply a little bit here. If I think it's too dark, I can just lift a little bit. I'm quite happy with that, I think. This little section here, I think I might just lift a little. It's just to take a little of the pigment off so it diffuses slightly. So we've got this as a darker section. I quite like that. Then I'm going to use my pyramid brush, just the tip of it, just to darken there, just to add a little bit more. Yeah. This we can leave quite diffused because of where it is in the picture. And I feel like I need to darken up the shape of the flower here. So I want it to be an edge, but I don't want it, I like this diffuse section here and I want to keep that, but I do want to create an edge here. So looking at the shape of my brush, I'm going to bring the brush right up to the edge of the leaves. I quite like that. That's quite nice. Then I'm going to use the stippling brush, clean it out, because of course we've had that colour in that we used for stippling. And then I'm just going to soften this section because I don't want it to look too harsh. But I like that. Now, I want it to look like it's kind of seeping into the background a little bit. So this is going to take a risk, but I quite like taking a risk with watercolour. So I'm going to get my stippling brush and I'm going to put some dark green on it. And I'm going to bring the stippling brush right up to the edge of this flower. And I'm going to ask some of the pink to go that way. And by doing that, I'm going to use the brush, let it just catch, and then roll it that way. So I'm pulling the pink out, not letting the green in. Then I'll put a little bit more, some more stipples here. Yes, so I quite like that. So that will give me a lovely diffused edge there. And I'm going to do an edge here, but I'm going to have this a little bit more hit and miss. So I like that. I quite like this section here. It's a little bit, we don't want to go all the way around the rose. I like this bit here. I'm going to just leave this. I might even, when I say I'm going to leave it, I'm not going to put any more green on it. But what I might do is get some of this pink and just put a little bit of pink here into the green, not near the flower, because I think that might just suggest there's something behind there. So I like this. I've deliberately wanted that to happen. I wanted something to merge there. I didn't want it to be too straight an edge. Okay, then we're going to work on these leaves. So we're going to let that settle. These leaves can be a little bit softer, I think. When I mean softer, just more dilute. So a little bit more paint and water in the brush rather than just the paint. So a little bit more water. And I want this to be a little bit nibbled, so I'm going to leave that. Deliberately not going to come and try and fill that in. A bit of yellow going in. And this time, let's do this leaf first. Something like this. So this is going to take us behind a big leaf. And then here we've got a leaf, but it's kind of hidden behind this rose. And I'm going to try and keep that. I want it to remain behind the rose, so I'm just going to tuck it in. That will give us the shape of that flower. So I like that. I'm going to keep it very similar to what we've had before. So while it's wet, I'll just remove some of those little veins. Now, into the water with my golden leaf brush, squeeze it out, tap it onto my hand, and just diffuse this. Okay, so this will be very diffused, very soft, and it'll look like it's underneath. So in comparison, I'm going to put a leaf in here. It'll be slightly diffused when it hits the wet, but it will look like it's coming from underneath. So nice strong green, midnight green. And we're going to take it from under here, press the whole brush and bring it in here. Lovely. And then we want the other part of the leaf to look like it's kind of behind here. So I'm just going to tuck that in there. That then gives us a little bit of light on the edge of this leaf. Looks like there's another leaf kind of underneath and disappearing. And where is the centre of this? Let's think about this. It's going to be about here. So I'll kind of do this. Just imply that those are the... Then it emphasises it even more. So I like this because we've got a nice strong edge. And then it sort of disappears. So what we can do is with our stippling brush, squeeze the brush out so it's just water, and I can just with the edge of my brush just invite this to go this way, so it's not all completely solid. This little bit will run in, which will look quite nice. So I'm going to leave that to settle. This I'm happy with. This I'm very happy with now. We'll work a little bit on this rose. So you can kind of take your time working on the whole painting. You don't have to work on all the roses and then all the leaves. It's quite nice to work in little sections. So we've got the idea that this rose is sort of somewhere there. Now this is a background rose. I don't want it to look too much in the foreground. I don't want it to take too much centre stage, but I do want it to be a little bit more interesting. Now, if you feel that that's gone too much, just push it back. And I want this to be darker here. I'm getting too much of an edge here, so I'm going to push that in. And sometimes that happens. You just push that in, and now I'm going to take it back here. So this will just soften. This I'm going to push here, so it's going to be quite dark. And this will be, it'll give the impression that it's behind. And we'll just leave this to sort of create itself there. But because we've got an edge there now, squeeze the brush out, and I'll just take that right out, so that will just go that way. So you can change things as you're moving around the painting. You can adjust things, start to dampen them, let the paint move. Okay. If you feel that you want more light in there, so I'm watching this, and I'm thinking, do you know, I'm going to have more light in there. I want it more like that. That's better. And when that's dry, we can then work on the top of it. So I'm quite happy with that one, happy with this one. I just have to wait for that one. And then I'm wanting a little bit of brightness in the background. So Deerfoot Stippler, really bright colour here. And I'm just going to start to put this bright colour in between. And this starts to look really nice because it just livens up parts of it. You don't have to fill the whole thing, but that is looking rather nice. Okay, so we've just got this little rose to work on. I quite like this. I'm wondering whether to get rid of the white, so you can think about it as it dries. So that's a good place to stop.